it's scaring me.
Well, the part that really kind of concerns me is my family lives in the Kentucky area, which is just a little bit shy south of you, James, and around the Louisville, Fort Knox area. And the weather patterns had changed since I was raised there as a kid. The weather that normally it would get down to maybe into the upper 20s, mid-20s in the past, would never get colder than that. Now they're experiencing it where it's down to 0 or like -5 or -10 at times. And they get those Midwest chills. They come straight down from the Arctic and right down through the middle of the country. And that's happened a number of times. And it was to a point where my mom, for instance, of course, she's up in age, close to 80, 81, and cannot safely go outside in that kind of weather. And neither can a lot of senior citizens. So they're trapped. They can't get out in that, especially if it's compounded by a lot of snow.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what this winter is going to be like. I already have a funny feeling we're in for it because it's starting out really cold. And that's really interesting here because I have never had to use my heat on until about the middle of October. And I've been using the heat since middle of September just to keep warm at night. And I'm telling you, it's weird. Even this studio, I normally don't even have to turn the heat on to around January because all the electronics heats this room up like you wouldn't believe. I have to run a heater in it now, or otherwise I'm going to be sitting here with goosebumps on me.
Even with all the servers running, and you still have cold weather. Here, for instance, it dropped down to 22 degrees in the morning. Every day it's dropping down further. And I've never seen October be this cold ever since I've been in the state of Washington. And this is over the years since 1976. I don't even know if it's ever been this cold ever.
I don't know. We'll find out, though. About James, you mentioned, too, it's like the warmest you're used to. How long have you been living there?
Well, I've lived here most of my life, except for about a 15, 18-year period. I lived on the East Coast, but I'd always come back and visit. And here's an example. The first 4 days of October this year was 90 and 91 degrees, 4 straight days. That's like record here. That's unheard of in October. I mean, it's unheard of to have this many 70-degree days. We've never had that many. It's mind-blowing. It just is. Most of our weather is affected by the jet stream that dips down below the Lake Erie and stuff. I mean, we could have a snowstorm 30 miles north of me in Canton, and they could get 8 inches. We might get 2. There's like a snow belt line there. But usually, end of January, beginning of February, we'll have a 2-week period where it's 5, 10 below for about 2 straight weeks. But I don't know. Every year it seems to be getting a little warmer. Last 4 or 5 years, I've noticed.
Yeah, that's scary. I don't know. Have you looked and seen what your extended weather forecast is saying for like the next 10 days or anything? Have you checked?
Well, I do know. I did watch a little bit of it today. I usually watch it every day, but I know this weekend's supposed to be mid-50s, so that was going to be a little bit of a shock. Used to be in the 60s and 70s. So that's what I was saying. Is maybe October's going to come here in November.
Yeah, well, at least maybe you won't have to go out and cut your grass again now for about 5 months.
Yeah, that's another thing. It hasn't rained here. Like, usually October is a very wet month. It hasn't. I had to mow the yard a week ago or so, but it's getting brown now. It hasn't rained. It just don't rain anymore.
Now, I don't know. You should move up to here, up in the Washington State, on my side of the mountains in the state. I guarantee you'll see. I don't know. Even the weather forecast, though, Sam is saying it's not going to be any rain for the next 10 days. So we've already gone quite a few days without rain. It's cold, but I don't know. It just kind of got me concerned. It has me so concerned right now, though, about the climate changes. It's coming out more and more about, what's going to happen by 2040, 2050. Thank God I'm the age I am right now, because I could not want to even see. I wouldn't want to see all these changes start taking effect. I remember when I was a kid, it was so beautiful and pristine. And the changes now are going so fast, and you start thinking about if the East Coast starts going underwater, parts of it, it's scary to think of that we, a lot of people say, oh, no, it's Earth is tilted. That's causing it. Other people are saying it's this. Oh, it's this natural thing every so many, tens of thousand years this happens. I think it has a combination of everything, okay? It's just all this pollution that's going in the air, and everything else we've done, and plus the Earth changes its natural, cycles. I just think we're going to be into one hell of a ride.
There was
You're
a
probably
computer
right.
simulation that was done down in Australia, and it had, at the time, however they put the data in there, I was just watching that on a YouTube video, and it was a graph that predicted how the world would be in the next 75 years from 1973 when that was done. It was pretty much on target. It predicted, it really stopped at about 2020 in showing how the population and the quality of life was going to start to dip really severely, and that the resources of our planet was going down rapidly. And the graph bottomed out where life was unlivable by the time 2040 rolled around, and that massive death would take place because of the pollution and the lack of resources made life almost unbearable. In other words, the air was saturated with things that we probably couldn't survive on. And we talked about, of course, oxygen diminishing from our planet because of all the trees and all the other things that actually, through photosynthesis, creates more oxygen from carbon dioxide. Well, if you don't have plants, and especially if you don't have what's in the oceans that also generate the oxygen, we're in bad shape. So I would not want to grow up in the next 20 or 30 years in the world that's going to come in that time period.
You said it so right. Talk about the oceans. A lot of people, when I talk to them, I said, we get a lot of oxygen from the oceans. They go, no, we don't. It comes from trees. No, it comes from trees. It comes from plants. It comes from a lot of things, plus the ocean. But we're killing the ocean. And I even had some people debate me on that. They said, oh, we're not killing the ocean. The ocean isn't going to die. At the rate we're killing the ocean, by about 2040 is going to be pretty bad shape. There's already dead spots in the ocean right now where, marine life can't even live and survive. So you figure how, with all this pollution that's going into it on a daily basis, give it another 20 years, guys, not even 20 years, and you're going to find big areas of the ocean not producing any oxygen. What's going to happen then?
Get all the coral reefs that have disappeared or died. I mean, you want to talk about the canary in the coal mine. Just take a look at some of the plant life that's not there anymore, or the fish that aren't there anymore, or the salmon runs that aren't happening anymore. That should tell you something where we're heading.
Well, it's a dead giveaway when I told you here, 2 weeks ago about bears in Alaska starving to death because there's not enough fish coming upstream, and that they're actually starving to death. That's a dead giveaway. And again, I was reading yesterday, they're still talking about it. They don't know how much longer they can store all this radioactive waste in Japan from the reactors, and that they're going to have to release it. Now, some people have told me, oh, it's not going to affect the oceans. It's not going to affect the sea life. Well, I don't know. They're smoking. I would like to have some of whatever they're smoking because it is going to affect our sea life. Yeah, it'll get dissipated, but before it gets dissipated, it's going to affect how much marine life and how much marine life maybe might even survive. But would you want to eat that crab or salmon, even off the Oregon or Alaska coast or California coast, Washington coast, off of British Columbia? I would be scared to death to eat anything like that.
Yeah. Another thing that people may not realize is with these warm winters, it doesn't kill off the insects and other creatures that carry diseases like ticks and mosquitoes. So what happens is the following summer, they're double fold. So then you have an increase of these diseases that ticks and mosquitoes carry, and then new ones pop up every year. Because the cold, if you don't have an average cold winter or a deep freeze for at least a couple of weeks, it doesn't kill off what nature is supposed to with the, the pluses and the minuses of just nature. The balance is out of whack.
Well, something is going on. I mean, the whole thing is, if you think about it, for years, the bees, for example, they come up with all these theories about bees, right? Why there's a shortage of bees, why they're dying off. And they said, it's from insecticides, it's from Roundup, it's from all this stuff, right? I disagree. I think it's because the magnetic field. I think the Earth is going through changes. The bees don't know where to go back from their hive. They can't find it. They're lost.
And if they can't pollinate the plants, then, or like the food we eat, think about that.
That's what the scary part is, and it's not that. It's birds and all this stuff else. We need these birds because the birds, again, take care of a lot of stuff that if they didn't live, we would have a lot more, yuck in this world. We'd have more disease, all this stuff. They take care of a lot of these, bad little creatures off the ground. And, and think about the caterpillar outbreaks. It would be even massive worse than it is because these birds eat this stuff.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's all part of the cycle. If you affect one part of the cycle of the Earth, and you don't have the insects, then that causes the other, whatever the predators eat, insects or the birds or whatever, their populations diminish, and then that affects something else on the food chain. It's all very interrelated. It's all very interconnected. And people just do not realize how fragile our Earth systems are. And especially when you talk about the amount of pollution that's being put out or industrial complexes that people depend on for our life, I don't think we can continue in the life that we're living right now the way we're living. I think we're going to have to get back to nature at some point and get away from a lot of this stuff, because if we don't, I don't think we're going to be around.
I don't think we can. I think it's gone too far. Again, I was reading in a lot of these countries in Africa, for example, they are the worst ones for, how can I say it, a plastic waste. They throw it wherever. They don't even dispose of it even the right way. If they live near the water, guess what? It ends up in the water. And now they can't, even go through some of the canals, because some of these villages are built on water or near water, like in the Amazon and stuff like that. It's all polluted with plastic bottles and plastic this, plastic that. And, the fish are getting into what fish they have left, and it's killing all the marine life in there, too. I mean, it's a lot of things going on in the ocean. There is a big dead zone of garbage. I don't know if you ever seen the video of that, where they have taken, Greenpeace has a big video of it, showing there's miles and miles of a dead zone in the ocean where all these plastic bottles and garbage is just floating in the ocean, just like all together.
They look like islands.
Yeah.
Islands of it. Unless you didn't look carefully, you thought it was an island below you from a plane. Come to find out, it's just a whole bunch of plastic bottles and floating along the top of the ocean.
Yeah, and blame that again on some of these areas where the rivers go through. They just throw the bottles in the river. We're talking villages, little towns, whatever. All the garbage goes right into the river, goes out to the ocean, there it goes, and it just creates a nice patch of dead zone. I don't know. I'm frustrated, and we worry more about the wall than anything else. Of course, right now, we're not even worried about the wall, are we? Because we're not even thinking about the wall right now, are we?
No, we're distracted.
Well, that's a good plan. Keep your mind off of certain things. Anyway, we're going to be back in about 3 minutes. And Sam, I guess I will hear you from you at the last half an hour of the show.
Yes, I'll be back.
Okay, my friend, you take care. James, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Everybody, you're listening to your host, me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And James, who's our guest when we come back?
Our guest will be Lon Strickler, and he will be getting into details about all these cryptids that I